Elliot Martin was as invisible as a person could be in a glass-walled corporate empire. Every morning at 5:45 a.m., long before the first intern spilled in with an iced latte and headphones glued to their ears, Elliot was already there, pushing his cart down the silent halls of Brenton Enterprises. His work boots squeaked softly on polished marble, the scent of disinfectant trailing behind him like an unspoken badge of duty. He fixed jammed printers, replaced flickering lights, unclogged sinks no one owned up to clogging, and picked up carelessly discarded Starbucks cups from meeting rooms where six-figure executives brainstormed innovation strategies. No one ever asked how he was. No one offered him coffee. Most didn't bother making eye contact. To them, he was the mop. But to Elliot, this job wasn't humiliation, it was survival. It was structure. It was something to keep him busy so he wouldn't come home to silence and remember how loud his house used to be when his wife, Clara, was alive. She used to call him her steady rock. "You're the kind of man people overlook until everything falls apart," she'd say. Then suddenly, "You're the only one holding it up." He lived by that, but on that Thursday afternoon, when he found the envelope tucked neatly into the slats of his locker, something stirred that hadn't stirred in a long time. The envelope was soft pink, sealed with a tiny heart sticker. His name was handwritten in cursive. Elliot. He blinked. No one at the company had ever given him anything besides a complaint form. Carefully, he opened it. "Hi Elliot, I know this is a little unexpected, but I've seen the way you work so quietly and with such kindness. I've always admired that. I'd love to have dinner with you if you're willing. Rooftop Bistro. 7 p.m. Thursday. I'll be in a red dress. Charlotte from HR." His throat tightened. Someone noticed him. The rest of the day, he drifted through his duties like a man in a dream. When employees brushed past without acknowledging him, it didn't sting as much. When an analyst snapped, "Can you mop faster? I'm on a call," he just smiled faintly. He had a date. That evening, he pulled out his old wedding shirt, white, slightly worn, but still crisp when ironed. He stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, combing his thinning hair, wondering if he looked foolish, wondering if he was too old, too tired, too broken for something like this. But when he placed the small bottle of cologne on the counter, he hesitated. Clara had given it to him on their anniversary. "For when you want to feel special," she'd said. He opened it, inhaled deeply, then nodded to his reflection. "It's time," he whispered. At 6:57 p.m., he stepped into the Rooftop Bistro, white rose in hand, hopeful heart in chest. And every single head turned toward him. Smirking, waiting, not with admiration, but anticipation. Elliot felt the shift in the air the moment he stepped onto the rooftop. The restaurant was elegant, string lights overhead, the scent of rosemary and grilled salmon drifting through the breeze, but beneath the charm lingered something sharp. Whispered voices, suppressed laughter. He couldn't pinpoint why at first. He simply assumed he was out of place. Then he noticed it, a group of employees from Brenton Enterprises, dressed up, wine in hand, huddled around two tables near the fire pit. Interns, junior execs, a few people from marketing. He recognized their faces, even if they had never bothered to learn his. A girl with curls, Zoe, gasped theatrically when she saw him. "Oh my God, he actually came." Her friend bit her lip to stop from laughing. "That shirt, is he serious?" Someone angled their phone, already recording. Elliot's excitement deflated, but he didn't want to assume the worst. Maybe Charlotte was simply late. Maybe this wasn't what it looked like. He checked his watch. 7:02. He approached the hostess, clearing his throat. "Excuse me, I'm here for a reservation under, Charlotte." The hostess blinked, confused. "There's no one by that name tonight." Behind him, someone snorted loudly. "Maybe she's invisible too." More laughter. Elliot's heart pounded. He turned slightly, just enough to see Zoe wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. His fingers tightened around the rose. A waiter walked by, muttering under his breath, "Poor guy." Elliot swallowed hard. He could feel his ears burning. He could leave, right now. Save what little dignity he had. But he didn't run. Instead, he walked to the reserved table, the table with candles and two menus placed neatly across from one another, and sat down. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe it was pride. Maybe he was just too tired to move. The room buzzed. He's actually waiting. Should someone tell him she isn't real? Oh man, this is brutal. Minutes passed, each one heavier than the last. Elliot stared at the rose, now trembling slightly in his hand. He tried to steady his breathing. He focused on the city skyline instead of the laughter behind him. He whispered quietly, to no one and to someone at the same time. Clara, I tried. Just then, from behind him, Zoe raised her glass and announced loudly, to Charlotte. May she find her mop someday. The group howled. Elliot slowly stood. His chair scraped against the floor, sharp, mournful. He placed the rose gently on the table. Then, without a word, he turned to leave. And that was when it happened. A voice, deep, commanding, echoed behind him. Is there a problem here? The effect was instantaneous. The laughter died. Wine glasses paused mid-air. Elliot froze mid-step. He didn't have to turn to know who it was. The sudden hush, the shift from arrogance to fear, it could only mean one thing. Richard Brenton, CEO of Brenton Enterprises, had arrived. And he had seen everything. Richard Brenton didn't need to raise his voice to command obedience. He simply stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the group of interns with a calmness so sharp it cut deeper than any shout could. His presence alone created gravity. Conversations died, forks were lowered, spines straightened. Zoe, who had been so bold moments ago, swallowed hard. "Yes, sir," she stammered, forcing a smile. "We were just a joke," Brenton finished for her, his tone unreadable. "Yes, I gathered." He didn't look at her again. Instead, he turned to Elliot, who stood frozen, shoulders slumped, half-turned as though caught between leaving and collapsing. Brenton stepped toward him slowly. "Mr. Martin." The formal address startled Elliot. No one at the company had ever called him Mr. anything. Elliot opened his mouth, instinctively defensive. "Sir, I was just leaving." "You will do no such thing," Brenton said gently but firmly. He gestured to the table. "You came here to dine. Sit." Elliot hesitated. "Please." That one word, "please," spoken by the most powerful man in the building, broke through the humiliation thickening in Elliot's chest. He nodded slowly and sat. Brenton pulled out the opposite chair and joined him. Across the restaurant, jaws dropped. Zoe's friend whispered, Is this real?" Brenton lifted the menu calmly, as though he were meeting a longtime colleague. "Do you like steak, Mr. Martin?" he asked without looking up. Elliot's voice was faint. Yes, sir." "Good. 2 steaks," Brenton told the waiter, who hadn't even approached yet but scrambled over immediately. "Chef's recommendation." The waiter nodded respectfully. "Right away, Mr. Brenton." Brenton leaned back, finally lowering his menu. His gaze swept across the interns. "I trust," he said slowly, "that everyone here enjoyed their little prank." No one spoke. "You see, I happen to review internal reports," he continued. "I've read every maintenance log, every after-hours repair, every emergency request. Do you know how many times this man," he nodded to Elliot, "has prevented this company from shutting down?" Silence. 7, Brenton answered for them. 7 times, in the past year alone. At 2 a.m. during a flood. During a blizzard when the heating failed. When the electrical grid nearly blew. He didn't wait to be thanked. He didn't expect applause. He simply showed up. Because that's the kind of man he is. His gaze hardened, and instead of gratitude, you gave him mockery. Zoe opened her mouth, eyes wet. "Sir, you're fired," Brenton said without hesitation. She gasped as though slapped. He didn't stop there. "Anyone who participated, clean your desks by morning. HR will contact you." A wave of dread settled across the group. No one argued, no one begged. They simply nodded, shame swallowing them whole. Brenton turned back to Elliot, voice softening. "Let them laugh on their way out. You and we dine." Elliot stared at him, eyes misty. Why are you doing this for me?" Brenton smiled faintly. "Because good men deserve to be seen." The waiter returned with bread and water. Around them, the restaurant remained hushed, no longer with cruelty, but with awe. And for the first time in years, Elliot didn't feel invisible. He felt respected.